Welcome to Letters to Louie with Abby Algiers. Welcome back, Abby.
Thank you, Sally.
Nice to have you here. We're currently in the end of October, going into November, and your father had the wonderful privilege of going on the honor flight.
Yeah, he did. He did. In 2012, he went on the honor flight. My brother went with him, and he just talked about that for so many years.
And how was he able to go to that?
I believe my brother applied. He found out how and then kind of made it happen.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was just, to be honest, I'm not really sure how it all went down, but I know my brother was involved with that.
All right. Well, I'm excited to hear this letter and his reflection of that wonderful, amazing day.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and read that to our viewers.
All right, thanks. Honor Flight. Dear Louie, I believe I wrote to you that I would be attending an honor flight in Washington, D.C. as a guest of the Program for Veterans of World War II. On November 3rd, I was privileged to be a guest and travel with my son, a naval veteran, to the Memorial of World War II. The trip was remarkable in content, in organization, and most impressively in participation of thousands of interested men, women, and children who stood in greeting us at Mitchell Field in Milwaukee and Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. The flight originated at Mitchell Field at 5 a.m. with registration, pictures, and IDs for the day. Think of 200 old men in all states of health, each with an associate, a guardian, for the day, veterans in blue jackets and gray hair, guardians in red jackets, some young men or women, some middle-aged, but all most attentive to the very elderly veterans. Simple arithmetic places those veterans in the mid-80s to mid-90s in age. Not so simple an observation places the veterans in a mode of attention and appreciation for a time to again recall and think of the years gone by, of the friends of yesterday, of the events associated with the years between 1941 and 1945, when all were young, and to recall those who were never privileged to grow old and be able to recall. Finally, the flight took off for Washington, D.C. 2 planes, each with 100 veterans and 100 guardians, flew to Washington in 1 hour and 30 minutes. Many recalled railroad trips in the 40s across the country, which were measured in days, sometimes weeks. Introductions were made and conversations began, revealing years of events, lives so varied, and memories again stimulated by mutual recall remarks. All became aware that heroes were among us, but most were aware of a common trend. Just guys who were caught up in the events of the 40s, just lived out their lives fashioned by the luck of the draw. We arrived at Dulles International on time. We were disembarked onto a people mover and transported to the receiving area. There, amazingly, we were met with at least 1,000 men, women, and children. They lined the halls and greeted us with smiles and extended handshakes, always thanking each veteran for your service. The greeting repetition was initially embarrassing until one realized the greeting was truly sincere. Small boys and bright little 4- and 5-year-old girls smiled and greeted us individually, repetitiously, and with true sincerity. Boy Scouts, youth groups, fathers and mothers, widows and widowers all thanked us and wished us well. We were initially embarrassed, but soon maturely accepted the greeting and returned the thankful greeting. A politician's rush was experienced by the handshaking and recognition. The reception was unexpected but gratifying. From there, we entered the buses and our trip began. The weather was chilly, the day overcast. All initial activities were on the Mall of Washington. All were confined to the mall between Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. The initial memorial was the Memorial of the Second World War, our connection to the past. It is the newest and recognized as the jewel of the mall. This memorial was long in the making, but finally was completed and is a fitting memorial to the 15 million servicemen and women of the era. Following the World War II Memorial, we spent minutes to hours at the Korean Memorial, the hallowed hall memorial to the police action of the early 50s. This memorial was spiritually spooky. The setting is on a downslope, about 2 acres of low hedges, green in nature, and interspersed are gray slate figures of soldiers walking through the bushes. With rifle, bazooka arms, each soldier is clothed in a slate gray poncho from head to ankles. Each is attentive and sad, is observant, cautious, and fearful. Alongside the field is an 8-foot granite wall with facial etchings of the faces of soldiers who had served in Korea. Pictures had been recorded and are now etched in perpetuity on the wall. Rumor has it that the soldiers who served in Korea had located their pictures in the etchings. The atmosphere of this memorial was haunting, and on that cold November day, shivers up and down the back were noted. Haunting, chilling, somber, and sadly felt were the moments at the Korean site. The sadness was prolonged this day when the Vietnam Memorial was revisited. That hallowed walkway of 57,000 names etched in walls of shiny granite, serving as a walkway for women, children, and now what might have been grandchildren of all those victims of such foolish actions of our leaders. Such a time of slaughter and degradation of fine young men, a time of death, a time of mashing and smashing of our youths with no reason for such violence and no hope of retrieval of lost bodies and souls in the deltas of Southeast Asia. I was reminded of one of my patients who had been a lost soul until one Sunday afternoon. He rid himself of his Vietnam horrors by reliving the body bag details he made into the jungles of torture. I had written previously of his story when he poured out his memories of soul-losing detail. And on this Saturday afternoon, I looked at the 57,000 names on the walls of the Memorial of Vietnam. We next visited the National Cemetery, where hundreds of thousands of servicemen now lie alongside Jack Kennedy's perpetual flame. There, we viewed the changing of the guard. Then, a bus tour of the area, boarding of the return plane, somber thoughts and quiet talk, and finally takeoff, a flight of an hour and a half, interrupted by mail call, an unexpected treat during which we received letters from our wives, children, friends, and neighbors. What a wonderful send-off from the memories of Washington. The plane was quiet. The backs of the hands of the veterans were moist from tears, from thoughts of what had been, and from the recall of times when family might have been allowed a closer insight into past lives and experiences. What a day, what a privilege to be young again, young of heart. The older one gets, the more appreciative of a pat on the back. And to think that the best was yet to come on the arrival at Mitchell Field, there to be met by 4,000 or 5,000 folks, by family, friends, and just plain people who took the time on a Saturday night to come down and see a cadre of old men who had, by the luck of the draw, served, survived, and been fortunate to live in this country, the land of the free and the home of the brave. What an honor to have loved, to have served, and now to experience an honored thank you.
So I personally have experienced the welcoming back at General Mitchell Airport, and it's very moving.
It is incredible.
I mean, I would notice the other people that were coming off of, my particular flight and looking at their expressions was very emotional. So it's something. And even more so for the veterans that were not appreciated, specifically the Vietnam veterans.
Right.
I mean, and that, I have goosebumps even just saying that and how they were treated. Mm-hmm. It just breaks your heart.
It really does.
And
definitely.
I know that your father had experienced and felt all of that coming back and being appreciated. You can hear it in his words.
Right. And the number of details of, the memorials he visited, then tying it back to that patient that he had written about earlier, and just all of the experiences of war he gathered over the years.
Absolutely. And the fact that he has this documented is, I think, so important. And I think that, again, I feel like every time we get done with one of these letters that we say how timely it is.
Right.
But it's so true.
It really is. It's timely for Veterans Day, for our climate in the world today.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. And for the need to appreciate our veterans.
Absolutely.
Every day, you know.
Every day.
And those fighting now.
And I hear that now. I hear people saying thank you for your service. And that's just wonderful. And I'm hoping that as humans we evolve into caring for each other. And that to me is just showing respect for what the person gave of their youth.
Right. Right, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for finding this.
I
and
know.
coming in and sharing.
You're welcome.
And to our viewers, as always, thank you for watching.